Good evening, dear listeners. I hope you're all comfortably settled, because tonight I have a story that will grip you with its chilling tale. This story is about me and an encounter that changed my life forever. A tale so terrifying it will keep you on the edge of your seat. Let's begin. The story starts with a tragedy that struck my life unexpectedly. My father died in a sudden accident, leaving my mother and me behind. My mother chose to hide the details of his death from me, thinking it would protect me. Little did we know, this decision would lead us into a world of supernatural horrors. One day, while wandering through a local fair, I stumbled upon a stall filled with various dolls. Among them, a silk-skinned doll caught my eye. I clung to it, refusing to let go, and my mother eventually bought it for me, hoping it would help fill the void left by my father's absence. I wished upon the doll, hoping that somehow my father would return to celebrate my upcoming birthday with me. Unbeknownst to us, this doll was not ordinary. It was a silk doll, believed to have the power to bring back anyone the owner dearly missed. A small black dog appeared at the stall, playfully biting at a poster that advertised the dolls. The vendor, a lively woman with short hair and casual clothes, paid little attention to the dog's antics. The dog then set its eyes on the silk-skinned doll and seized it. The vendor chased the dog, cursing loudly, but the dog was swift, weaving through the crowd with the doll in its mouth. The chase led them to a secluded spot where the dog finally stopped, facing the angry vendor. "Give that back, you mutt, or you'll regret it!" the vendor threatened, panting heavily. To her surprise, the dog leapt towards her, and in a swift move, threw sand into her eyes. The vendor cried out in pain, rubbing her eyes furiously. When she could see again, the dog was gone, and a young boy was holding the doll. "Don't take things that aren't yours, little one," the boy scolded the dog, but it was clear the doll was no longer in its mouth. Nearby, a little girl held the silk-skinned doll, refusing to let go despite the vendor's demands. The girl's mother approached, dressed all in black, and apologized profusely, offering to buy the doll. "Is this for sale? My daughter is very stubborn once she likes something," she explained. The vendor's anger melted away at the prospect of a sale, and she agreed, stating that the doll cost 150 yuan. The mother handed over the money, and the vendor, now smiling, told the girl, "This is a silk doll. It can bring back anyone you miss dearly." The vendor left, cursing the dog under her breath, as a group of young people approached the boy holding the dog. "Is this the dog that saved us?" one of them asked, recognizing the animal. The boy's mother, a woman named Xu Ling, looked confused. "Saved you?" she inquired. The group explained how, a few days prior, they had been camping nearby when a pack of robbers attacked them. The smell of their barbecue attracted a giant wolf, which scared off the robbers, but then turned on them. The small black dog had bravely fought the wolf, allowing them to escape unharmed. Xu Ling nodded, finally understanding, and thanked them for sharing the story. Meanwhile, the girl with the doll was engrossed in her new toy. Xu Ling and her son decided to head home, planning to stay in the village for a while longer. At home, Xu Ling bathed her daughter Ningxue and put her to bed after watching her favorite cartoons. But before she fell asleep, Ningxue asked innocently, "Mommy, why hasn't Daddy come home yet?" Xu Ling, holding back tears, replied softly, "Daddy has a lot of work to do. He might not come home for a long time." Ningxue was upset, insisting, "But my birthday is coming up. I want Daddy to come back for my birthday." Xu Ling promised that her father would be there for her birthday, soothing Ningxue until she fell asleep. Alone in the living room, Xu Ling stared at their wedding photo, memories flooding back. Her husband had always teased her, and his proposal had been anything but romantic. Yet she had said yes because it was him. The next morning, Xu Ling awoke on the sofa, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She hurriedly prepared for the day, planning to visit the insurance company to finalize the claim. Despite the large sum of money she received, Xu Ling decided it would be best to keep herself busy with work to avoid dwelling on her grief. Returning home, she found Ningxue crying hysterically in the living room. "What's wrong?" she asked, rushing to her daughter's side. "The doll ran away," Ningxue sobbed. Xu Ling was puzzled until she remembered the silk doll. "Did you lose the doll? Don't worry, we'll find it," she reassured Ningxue, though she had no idea where to start looking. The next few days were a blur as Xu Ling juggled her search for a job with taking care of Ningxue. She noticed that the doll would mysteriously appear and disappear, each time leaving Ningxue more distraught. One evening, exhausted, Xu Ling decided to confront the situation directly. She asked Ningxue what she had said to the doll. "I told it I missed Daddy and wanted him to come back," Ningxue confessed. Xu Ling's heart sank. She didn't believe in supernatural occurrences, but the series of events made her uneasy. That night, she kept a close watch on the doll, placing it on a shelf in the living room. In the middle of the night, Xu Ling was awakened by a strange noise. She tiptoed into the living room, only to find the doll missing. Panic set in as she searched the house, eventually finding the doll sitting on Ningxue's bed. "Ningxue, did you take the doll?" she asked, shaking her daughter gently. Ningxue, half asleep, mumbled, "No, Mummy. The doll came to me." Xu Ling's unease grew. She took the doll back to the living room and decided to stay up, watching it. Hours passed, and just as she began to doze off, the doll moved. Xu Ling's heart pounded in her chest as she saw it crawl towards the front door. Gathering her courage, she followed the doll outside, into the night. The doll seemed to lead her down the path towards the village outskirts. Her fear grew with every step, but she couldn't stop now. The path led to an old, abandoned house at the edge of the village. The door creaked open as if expecting her. Xu Ling stepped inside, the air thick with dust and decay. The doll stopped in the middle of the room, its eyes glowing eerily in the darkness. Suddenly, a cold voice echoed through the house. "You wished for his return." Xu Ling spun around, searching for the source of the voice. Her heart raced as she realized she was not alone. Shadows danced on the walls, forming into a ghostly figure. It was her husband, or rather, what was left of him. "You should not have meddled with forces you do not understand," the ghostly figure warned. Xu Ling's knees buckled as she fell to the ground, tears streaming down her face. "I just wanted to make Ningxue happy," she cried. The ghost approached her, its eyes filled with sorrow. "The doll grants wishes, but at a terrible price. You must return it to where you found it, or suffer the consequences." With those final words, the ghost vanished, leaving Xu Ling alone with the doll. She grabbed the doll and ran back home, determined to return it to the store the next day. At dawn, she arrived at the fair, only to find the stall gone. Desperate, she asked around, but no one knew where the vendor had gone. The doll seemed to mock her as she clutched it, unsure of what to do next. Days turned into weeks, and the doll continued to torment Xu Ling and Ningxue. Strange occurrences plagued their home, and Ningxue's health began to decline. Xu Ling was at her wit's end when she remembered the vendor's words. The doll can bring back anyone you miss dearly. Determined to end the nightmare, Xu Ling sought out a local shaman known for dealing with supernatural entities. The shaman listened to her story and agreed to help, warning her that the ritual would be dangerous. That night, under the shaman's guidance, Xu Ling performed the ritual to sever the connection between the doll and her husband's spirit. The air grew cold, and shadows danced around them as the shaman chanted ancient incantations. The doll writhed and twisted in Xu Ling's hands, emitting an unearthly scream. Suddenly, it burst into flames, disintegrating into ashes. The shadows vanished, and a heavy silence fell over the room. "It's over," the shaman said, exhausted. Xu Ling collapsed to the floor, tears of relief streaming down her face. The ordeal had taken its toll, but Ningxue was safe, and the malevolent presence was gone. As the sun rose, Xu Ling and Ningxue began to rebuild their lives, free from the haunting grip of the silk doll. They never spoke of the doll again, but the memory lingered, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurk in the shadows. Months passed, and Xu Ling and Ningxue slowly resumed their normal lives. However, the memory of the silk doll and the haunting ordeal lingered like a dark shadow over their home. Xu Ling often found herself glancing over her shoulder, a lingering sense of dread gnawing at her. One evening, as they were preparing for bed, there was a knock at the door. Xu Ling opened it to find a stranger standing there, a man with a weathered face and piercing eyes. "May I help you?" Xu Ling asked, her voice trembling slightly. The man introduced himself as Li Wei, a historian researching ancient artifacts and their powers. He had heard about the silk doll and believed it was part of a larger, more sinister collection. "I need to know everything you experienced," he said urgently. "These dolls are not just cursed, they are part of a dark ritual that spans centuries." Xu Ling hesitated, but Li Wei's intense demeanor convinced her to share her story. As she recounted the events, Li Wei took meticulous notes, nodding grimly. "You were lucky to survive," he said once she finished. "The silk doll is just one of many. Each doll holds the spirit of a vengeful soul, bound by dark magic. The ritual to break their curse is dangerous and often deadly." Xu Ling's heart sank. "So, there are more of these dolls out there?" Li Wei nodded. "Yes, and they must be destroyed before they can claim more victims." Determined to help, Xu Ling agreed to assist Li Wei in his quest to locate and destroy the remaining dolls. Together, they embarked on a journey that took them to remote villages and hidden temples, each step bringing them closer to the source of the dark magic. Their journey led them to an abandoned monastery deep in the mountains. According to Li Wei's research, this was where the original ritual had been performed centuries ago. The monastery was shrouded in mist, its crumbling walls covered in ancient symbols. As they ventured inside, a sense of foreboding enveloped them. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the silence was deafening. They navigated through dark corridors, their footsteps echoing ominously. In the heart of the monastery, they found a large chamber filled with dolls of all shapes and sizes. Each doll's eyes seemed to follow them, and a cold breeze swept through the room, whispering unintelligible words. "This is it," Li Wei said, his voice barely a whisper. "The source of the curse." Xu Ling felt a chill run down her spine as they approached the center of the chamber, where an ancient altar stood. On the altar lay a book bound in human skin, its pages filled with dark incantations. "We need to destroy this book," Li Wei said, his voice shaking. "It's the key to the curse." As they prepared to burn the book, the chamber grew colder, and the doll's eyes glowed menacingly. Suddenly the ground trembled, and ghostly figures emerged from the walls, their wails filling the air. Xu Ling and Li Wei stood their ground, chanting the ritual words they had learned. The figures writhed in agony, their forms dissolving into mist. With a final ear-piercing scream, the spirits vanished and the dolls crumbled to dust. The ground stopped shaking, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Xu Ling and Li Wei collapsed to the floor, exhausted but victorious. "It's over," Li Wei said, his voice hoarse. "The curse is broken." Xu Ling felt a wave of relief wash over her. The nightmare that had plagued her life was finally over. She thanked Li Wei for his help and returned home, determined to put the past behind her. Years later, Ningxue grew up, her memories of the silk doll fading into a distant blur. Xu Ling remarried and found happiness once more. But they never forgot the lesson they had learned. Some objects are best left undisturbed. As for Li Wei, he continued his research, uncovering and destroying cursed artifacts wherever he found them. His encounters with the supernatural left him with a deep respect for the forces that lay beyond the veil of the ordinary world. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey. Remember, the supernatural world is vast and mysterious, and some secrets are better left undiscovered. Stay safe, and until next time, keep your wits about you. You never know what lurks in the shadows.